Togo, open letter to His Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Togolese Armies and Minister of Defense, Faure Essozimna GNASSINGBÉ, the 4th of May, 2020. The 4th of May, 2023. Exactly 3 years since Colonel Toussaint Bitala MADJOULBA was brutally murdered. Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Togolese Armies and Minister of Defense, Faure Essozimna GNASSINGBÉ, we come to ask you to hand over the remains of our brother Toussaint Bitala MADJOULBA to bury him according to the rites of our ancestors Nawdba, because they did not have the honor of burying their son, brother, Father Toussaint Bitala MADJOULBA, whose remains is still in the morgue for exactly 3 years. Togolians in general and Nawdba in particular are still immersed in an endless mourning, an eternal mourning. The funeral is the only way for our brother to join his ancestors and we theirs to come out of our mourning. Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Togolese Armies and Minister of Defense, Faure Essozimna GNASSINGBÉ, allow us once again to remind you of the death of our brother ignominiously murdered on the night of 3 to the 4th of May 2020, in his office in the Camp Bear, the only time you dared to speak up on this matter. You promised Togolese in general and Nawdba in particular that you will open an urgent investigation into this case and that the perpetrators of this murder will be prosecuted and judged according to the law. Today is exactly 3 years, to the day, and we don't know the results of that survey you would have diluted. Therefore, we kindly ask you to tell the Togolese people and Nawdba people in particular, where you stand in this investigation and what you intend to do if it is not completed yet. In the hope that this diligent investigation by you would have resulted, we believe that nothing stops you now from handing over our brother's remains to us for his burial. Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Togolese Armies and Minister of Defense, Faure Essozimna GNASSINGBÉ, allow us to reiterate you what mourning ceremonies in general and especially among the Nawdba people mean. They are made not only to honor the deceased and enable him to reunite with his ancestors, but also to psychologically relieve those he loved and must mourn. Several ceremonies take place spanning 2 to 3 years after the late parent's funeral, so it is after the last funeral ceremony called rites that the Nawdba can officially come out of mourning. Until these last rites are done, he remains in mourning. Allow us to draw your attention again, Mr. President, to the extreme precariousness in which the survivors of the late Toussaint MADJOULBA are, that it is impossible to have our brother's death certificate established, or it is this act that allows one to set up the widow file of his wife, for the National Social Security Fund and the file to benefit from the benefits she is entitled to or from the social insurance companies and for her orphaned children to benefit from the scholarship orphan. Can you imagine, just for a moment, the daily nightmare and the burden psychological that we the Nawdba have been carrying for 3 years today, day for day? So understand that, unless you give us the privilege to officially bury our brother, you keep us in perpetual mourning, and keep his family at the highest risk. Will you finally relieve us of this burden that weighs too much on our morals? Otherwise, we wonder what we did to you to deserve such treatment, this endless punishment. If you are the one punishing us, do you understand how cruel your punishment is? We believe not it is your will. You can't sub us willingly to such an ordeal. You also do not want to deprive from the afterlife Colonel Toussaint Bitala MADJOULBA, who served you so loyally. We have no doubt that you understand exactly why we complain to you quite regularly. These ain't nothing new, they translate the promises you had made to our Nawdba cadres of your entourage to calm the Nawdba people, who, outraged and overcome by this ignominious crime, rose as one man to claim the body of their son, our brother Toussaint Bitala MADJOULBA, in order to bury him with dignity following our ancestral rites. We believe that you will favor our grievances if you don't want to pass our Nawdba cadres around you for liars, having lied at your service. Grant them the chance, the privilege to hand over our brother's body to them to bring him back to Siu for a dignified burial. Don't pass them off as liars or deceivers or divisions working to disable the Nawdba people. Excellency Mr. President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Togolese Armies and Minister of Defense, Faure Essozimna GNASSINGBÉ, confident that you will allow our brother, the son of Togo, the high dignitary of the Togola army, Colonel Toussaint Bitala MADJOULBA, to officially join our ancestors to find his place, we beg you to believe in our distinguished and most respectful feelings. Dr. Isidore Wasungu, Ph.D., N. President Nawdba Diaspora Association Extension, Gilbert is the Spice Batika Shutter MADJOULBA Batosi Kalix About Nima Molga Kaja.